So my son was playing this game on his computer, and there's a game within the game that you can play with various characters to earn money. Now, I don't remember the name of the game that he was playing, but the game within the game they call Knucklebones. Now, we like playing board games. He showed me this game. We did a real quick little setup for it and played it. It was pretty fun, and he thought it would be cool to have an actual Knucklebones set that we could play whenever we wanted. So I went on Thingiverse and I found a couple designs people had posted on there. I actually 3D printed a couple pieces from one of the designs, and I wasn't really happy with how it was turning out. And that's when I thought I'll just come up with my own design and make it out of wood on the CNC. So I did the design last night, I ran all the tool paths, and I'm ready to carve. I don't need a lot of wood for this game, but I do need a couple pieces that are at least 1.5 inches thick. I'm sure I can find what I need over my offcuts pile, but before I do that, let me quickly show you the design. Here we are in my old rabbit hutch, now known as the CNC room. Let me show you the design I made. All right, over here in the job size, I set it to the actual dimensions of what I want the game board to be. And there'll be 2 of these actually at 8 3/4 by 4 1/4 by 1 1/4 inches thick. I set the Z here to the material surface and the XY position to lower left. As you can see up here, I have a bunch of layers. The first one here is the bitmap layer. I got this off the internet, and this was just to get the font correct on the name of the game, and then I wanted this little symbol here. This will be carved into the top of the game board. So like I said, this will be a 2-sided game board. Both sides will have the roll tray. Both sides will have dice holes. Both sides will be cut out to overall size. Both sides will have the magnet holes. The top will have these numbers 1 through 3. The bottom, what I'm calling the bottom of the box, will have numbers 4 through 6, and that 1 through 3 looks like this. And this is how you score the game. This will just be so you have a quick reference of how you score the game. They both will have this lip profile. And the main difference between the top and the bottom will be these numbers, and then also the start depth and the depth of cut for some of these pockets and profiles will be different for each. And if we come up here to this arrow, we can switch over to the toolpath side, and you can see these are all the toolpaths I need to make this game board. So for instance, if we go to the 3D view for the top, I will need the big pocket. I will need the rolling pocket. I will need the dice pockets. I will need the magnet holes, and I will need the numbers. And then we can run that and see how it looks. I'll also run the cutout on both sides, so let me do that real quick also. That'll just round off the corners. That'll get me down most of the way, and I'll just have to finish this off either on a router table or by hand or something. Probably just by hand. That'll be pretty quick. Now, as you can see, this is carved down here and also right over here, creating this lip or this wall around the whole outside, and the bottom side of the game board will be the opposite of this, so they'll fit together. I can reset this and show you that real quick. So if I reset this, I do the bottom, I'll need the bottom lip, the bottom. These are all the same sizes, but they just start carving at a different depth, so they work out. And then we'll do that, and then we'll preview those. And now if you look at this bottom piece, you can see how it's carved the opposite way, so they'll fit together, and then the magnets will line up, and it'll be a nice, snug, tight fit. And then when the 2 pieces are put together for storage, this area right here will be large enough to hold all 18 of the dice you need to play the game. And then on the top of the top piece will be this here. So the main challenge of a design like this, or I guess what you really have to pay attention to, are the start depths of each of your carves. Take the numbers that are carved into the bottom of those roll pockets, for instance. For the top piece, I have that large initial pocket that's 1/4 inch deep, and then the roll pocket is 3/4 of an inch deep from that, which means the start depth for my numbers in that roll pocket have to start at 1 inch. But the bottom side of the game board doesn't get that initial deep pocket. It gets a 1/4 inch rim carved out around the whole outside. So instead of the carve for that dice rolling pocket starting at 1/4 inch and going to 3/4, it starts at 0 and goes to 3/4, which means the scoring numbers for the bottom side, that carve starts at 3/4 of an inch instead of 1 inch. It can get a little confusing. You just have to keep track of everything and then run the previews in the software to make sure everything's going to carve how it's supposed to. All right, let's head back over to the shop and get some wood picked out to make this game. So I went through the cutoffs and I found a couple pieces of wood that will work. I want the box to be like two-tone when it's put together. So I found this piece of hard maple. This will be the top. And then this piece of walnut here will be the bottom. I know on the design I set the material thickness at 1.25 inches. That's a little bit too thin. I actually need these to be about 1.5 inches. The maple piece is okay. It's just under 1.75 inches, but this piece of walnut is at 2 5/8. So I'm going to put this on the bandsaw and resaw some of this off to get rid of some of the bulk. Then I'll put both pieces on the CNC, surface them together until both pieces are 1.5 inches thick. Alright guys, I took the pieces of wood over to the shop. I removed the double-sided tape I had on here to keep it stuck down to the spoil board. And then I just kind of go over the piece of wood, look at both sides, and figure out which one I want to be the top, where I want to be the bottom, and where I want to position my carve. Take this piece of walnut, for instance. I have a knot right here. I'd like to avoid most of that if I can. There's also some sapwood up here. I'd like to avoid that also. So that's going to push my carve down to this side as far as I can to avoid this. I'll definitely avoid the sapwood. I only need about 4.25 inches here, and that should work out just fine. Looking at the piece of maple, it has some cracks into the wood that come in, 3 inches or so. I'll have to avoid those, so I will do my carve over on this side of the board. Alright, with carve time, bit changes, setting up material and all that, I got a few hours of carving to do, so I'm going to focus on that, make sure I don't make any mistakes, and I'll see you back here when these carves are done. That is what happens when you start your carve before your material is secured to the spoil board. What happened is I set the piece down like that, and then I had to have a Zoom meeting with my son's teacher. I got done with the meeting, I zeroed the bit, got everything set up, and went ahead and started the carve. And obviously I hadn't actually secured this down to the spoil board. And immediately it started here and just started going crazy. I stopped it right away, but not before it damaged the edge here. I needed this edge to be full height, and now it's not going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and run the carve, see how it looks. I might have to redo this, or I might be able to incorporate my mistake into the design somehow. We'll see how it looks when it's all said and done. But it's a good reminder that if you're doing something like this and in the middle of it you get distracted by something else, when you come back to it, double check, triple check everything before you run the machine. So I was doing the carve last night, I was sitting in here watching it, and I started to smell this kind of funny smell. It was like that burnt electrical motor smell. You probably know what I'm talking about. So I started to check out the router more closely, and I noticed it was making kind of a funny noise. And when I went to touch it, this part of the router right here was so hot I couldn't even touch it, and that heat was radiating down into the collet and the collet nut and the bit itself. Everything was super hot, way hotter than it should be. And the motor's making a weird sound it shouldn't make. I'll turn it on for a second, see if you can hear it. I don't know if you can hear that kind of fast clicking it's making as it spins. It shouldn't be doing that. I pulled the brushes, they look okay, nothing looks out of the ordinary, so I think it's something actually inside the motor here that went out of whack. This is the original router from when I got the CNC machine, so it's been several years now, it has a lot of use on it, and I guess it's just time for a replacement. I've been thinking about going to a spindle on this, and I thought this would be a perfect time to do it since I have to replace the motor anyways. But the spindle setups I was looking at were anywhere from $500-ish to $1,200 or $1,300. This router cost me $150, so it's a pretty cheap fix, and it'll get me back up and running fairly quickly. So I just went ahead, ordered a new Makita router yesterday. It came in today, and I'm just going to swap it out. I was hoping to get this project done yesterday and edit the video and get it posted today, but that's not going to happen now. I have a dinner I have to leave for in about half an hour, and then tomorrow I'm heading out of town for 9 days. So this project's going to be on hold for about a week and a half or so, and I will come back to it when I get home. So the next time you see me, we'll be finishing up this project, but it's going to be about a week and a half in the future, so stay tuned, and I'll see you then. All right, guys, I was out of town for about 10 days, and then I was feeling under the weather for a while. So it's been over 2 weeks since I've worked on this game board or really done anything in the shop at all. But I'm feeling better now, so it's time to get back to it. So there is a slight issue I need to address with this game board. Let me bring you in close and show you what I'm talking about. All right, overall, this is looking pretty good, and it fits together really nicely. But the issue is the magnets hold pretty good, but if I give it a little shake, it comes apart pretty easily. And when I add to this the weight of the dice, that just adds a little more weight, and it comes apart even easier. Now, there's a few different ways I can go about correcting this, and the first thing I thought of was just to make the bottom piece lighter. This piece of walnut has a lot of extra mass in the bottom. I could easily remove about 1/2 inch from this, and it would be just fine. But when I put this together, I like the thickness of it. I like the overall heft and size of it. I really want to avoid removing any wood from this if I can do that. So my other option, and what I'm going to try first, is to simply add a couple more magnets. So to do that, I'm going to carefully measure where I want my magnets to go in these locations, and then I'll drill a little tiny hole there, just big enough to accept a brad nail. And I'll cut a couple of short pieces of this brad nail. I'll place them in those holes, and then when I put the two pieces together, I'll press the lid down, and that brad nail sticking up out of the walnut will make a mark on my maple here and tell me exactly where to drill the holes so the magnets all line up. So that's a pretty simple process, and once it's done, I think those extra magnets will hold this box together much better. All right, guys, hope you can see that I have some really small holes drilled here, and I cut some really short pieces of that brad nail, probably 3/8 of an inch long maybe. I'll drop them in those holes. And so with those in the holes, if I just put this together and give it a push, and now hopefully you can see this, I have some marks in the maple here that align with those holes. So now I just have to drill some holes on those marks, put the magnets in, and see how it works. Now when you have two pieces like this that you want to attach with magnets, actually putting the magnets in is probably the most critical part of the build. As we all know with magnets, opposites attract, so you want those negatives and positives facing each other, so when you put your pieces together, they actually pull each other together. And to press the magnets into the holes, I'm just putting the magnet on the tip of this 5/16 punch, and I'm using this as a handle to push the magnet down into the hole. And these holes are a tight fit, so it may require a little persuasion, so I just have a little teeny ball peen hammer here to give me a little help. I have all the same poles facing up on the bottom here, and then the opposite poles facing up on the top. So if I take my magnet and I push it on here, and I can feel that repelling, it repels on all 4 of the magnets that are already installed, so I know this is the pole that's the same as this one, because they repel each other. So I want that facing up, so I want to turn this around and then push that into my hole. I just tap that down and it sets it nice and flush with the top of the wood. Now these magnets are 5 millimeters in diameter, and I drilled 3/16 inch holes, and that gives me a nice tight press fit. So again, I just do a quick test, and it is repelling all 4 of these. So if I flip it, and now it attracts, and it should repel on the opposite side. So this is the part that will go down, which is repelling this, which means this part that will be facing up will attract that magnet. And that's exactly what we want. So I'll just push these in like that. This hard maple is a little harder than the walnut actually. So a few taps, we get them in there. All right, now these should hold together a little better. So now let's give this a little test. Shaking it like this before, these would pop right apart. And they're staying together pretty good. Yeah, that's a nice fit. Add some weight, and they're still holding together. If I shake it hard, it probably will come apart. Well, maybe. There you go. I gotta shake it pretty hard though to pop it apart, so that's a good fit. And remember, if you want to make one of these game boards for yourself, check out the description. I'll put links to the magnets I used and any other tools or items that were specific to this build. I'll put links down there so you can pick that stuff up and make one of these yourself. Also on my website, I will have available the toolpath files and the VCarve design file, so you can run those toolpaths as is and make it just like I did, or you can go into VCarve and do any modifications you want and make it your own. And I will go over there and I'll add in the holes for the extra magnets, so the copy you get will have 6 magnet holes in the top and the bottom. All right guys, I have a little bit of chisel work to do on this to square up some of these corners. Obviously I have some sanding. I'll throw some finish on this and this project will be done. Oh, nice sharp chisel makes quick work of that. All right, guys, I put some finish on the box and the Knucklebones game is done. So here's the finished box. You can see it says Knucklebones on the top, and then the little logo from the game is also carved in there. Flip it over. I lasered my logo on the bottom. I ended up sanding down this bottom edge on the lid just a little bit, enough to create this shadow line around the whole box. I think it's a nice, interesting detail. So adding those extra magnets really helped. It stays together really well. It doesn't just fall apart when I pick it up, but it's still easy enough to take it apart to play the game. And then to play the game, you just take the lid off, set the 2 pieces like that, and then one player rolls in here and places their dice. The other player rolls over here and places their dice. And then the numbers carved in the bottom of the rolling areas makes it quick and easy to add up the score. So once again, check out the description for all the items I used to build this game, and check out my website for the cut files and the VCarve design file so you can make one of these for yourself. And that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.